Hello, everyone, and welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode 773. It's being recorded on May 15, 2024. I'm Sebastian Peak.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Brett Van Sprunberg.
And I'm Kent Burgess.
And no Josh this week. He's traveling. He's not available because he's not making himself available. Let's put it that way. I think he values his alone time sometimes. You know, you can be a part of PC Perspective, not by joining our podcast, which would actually be kind of interesting because I'm not sure how you would do that, hack into this computer that I'm using to stream or something, but you can support us financially, which is even more important. Go to patreon.com.
And exciting.
/PCPer. Yes, it is exciting. There's nothing more exciting than committing to a recurring payment from your bank account to us. And I think it's also very fulfilling. It's like the gift that keeps on giving. It's early Christmas every week that we like, oh, we can keep doing this for another week. All right, cool. Yeah. Or another month.
Yeah. It makes you part of this in a small and interesting way.
In a very important way. You're literally a patron. I think that's why they call it Patreon. Let's move to the PC Perspective news desk. And story number one, it's got to be AMD's official launch of a brand new Ryzen 8000 processor series, the F series. I actually titled this wrong. It should not be Ryzen 7. They released both the Ryzen 7 and Ryzen 5. But it's the 8000F series. Maximize your gaming with the most affordable Ryzen 8000 series processors available. You know how they're so affordable?
8-core 16-thread. Sounds pretty reasonable. Or
Brett, you know what they did?
Because they don't use several hundred watts of power?
Well, yeah, that too, because they're only 65-watt parts. They're more affordable because they're taking the 8000G and they're disabling the integrated GPU. So they can harvest those with maybe lackluster iGPUs and turn it into the monolithic desktop Ryzen that you always dreamed of. Forget about CCD1 and CCD2.
Now you don't have to be embarrassed about buying an iGPU you weren't going to use.
These 8000 F series processors come in two flavors. The Ryzen 7 8700F, which is an 8-core 16-thread part, up to 5 gigahertz. Base is 4.1. 24 megabytes of total cache, and 65-watt TDP. Now, importantly, this is 2024, mind, AI is all over this. So it has an NPU, which you can put to use right away running synthetic NPU desktop benchmarks.
And OpenPCP.ai. It's our new launch.
Are you excited?
No, not about that part. But the rest of it seems okay.
The Ryzen 5 does not have an NPU, and it's a lot less expensive. It's $100 less. So get excited about a 6-core 12-thread, a little bit slower, only 4.7 gigahertz max boost, a little bit less cache, only 22 megabytes. Same TDP. Both of these come with a cooler in the box, and that's all they really need because they're 65 watts. And they're mobile parts. $169 United States dollars for the Ryzen 5, $269 for the Ryzen 7.
Yeah.
And they're providing...
Your reflex is often to reach for the AMD shelf whenever you're looking to build a budget build for your cousin's brother's friend or whatever.
Hey.
This just makes that so much easier to do.
Mm-hmm. Especially when they need a new computer because their AI is running slow. Because the amount I've been hearing...
Okay, they're not doing that.
AMD provided the media with a brief look at their own internal test results against the competition. So apparently the Ryzen 7 8700F goes against the Core i5 14400F.
Yeah, brave choice.
I guess it must be slower than a Core i7 then. But in Cyberpunk, this is 12% faster. In Counter-Strike 2, 20% faster. And all the way up to 24% faster in The Division 2. And I did not read the notes to find out what resolution and settings they were using, but I'm sure it's perfectly capable. I was very happy with the CPU performance of the version with graphics. So this should be great. A low cost, high performance part, but you still have to marry it to DDR5 memory, and it's still AM5 socket.
Budget build. material.
Budget,
Seems nice for
budget,
that.
yeah, budget build material. Yeah,
Seems
those
like
AM5
for that.
boards are like cheap as chips.
Well, that may
at
not
least
be
DDR,
true, but yeah,
at least DDR5 is
AM5
expensive
and
now.
yeah, DDR5 and the AM5 board.
No, I think it might be an interesting because you've got laptop makers now actually going with Ryzen chips inside, which has been rare for many, many years. And the amount of people right now that are literally streaming, hey, AI runs really slow on my old laptop. Like, well, first off, it should be mostly cloud-based, but okay, fine. They wrote it very bad, and the API just chews up your CPU. Well, I need a new computer. If you lose that fight, well, you can go with AMD because fairly cheap, and it does have an NPU on it. It will actually run things a little better as they're redoing their emails through AI. Apparently, it's a very important thing right now. So I think monetarily wise, this could be really smart for AMD to do.
Speaking of AMD, people have been clamoring for more AMD laptops, not just AMD laptops, high-end AMD laptops. And what is more premium than Dell XPS laptops? Cutting-edge devices with beautiful screens. The Dell XPS 16, it might just be going AMD in 2027. You know, there were some Dell leaks recently, and this was one of them on the roadmap.
Yeah.
Performanti.
Maybe in using the chips we just talked about, because
indeed,
AI sells right now.
Right now, we're talking about 2027.
And
AI won't even be
early.
popular then.
You might
it'll be
not
long
see it
gone
till
by then.
2028, to be honest.
Possibly,
just-
possibly 2028. I'm guessing there are some agreements in place, exclusivity type agreements that prevent them from doing it sooner. Just a guess. In a related story, Qualcomm Snapdragon X is coming to Dell XPS, and sooner than AMD. I know that you have thoughts about this, Kent.
Yeah, I have a feeling that the reason Dell is thinking of AMD in 2027 is they may be wanting to see exactly how ARM laptops hit the market. Because right now there's a lot of optimism for the performance these can offer in a low power configuration, ditching x86 entirely for ARM instruction set. In some of the press that have been to see, the pre-production laptops, the non-system integrator laptops, have been pretty impressed with the integration so far and the performance, especially at low power levels.
Yeah, the battery life is, of course, a huge factor here because these are mobile parts. And we have stories like Qualcomm Snapdragon X outclasses Intel Alder Lake in video playback time. Leaked internal Dell documents compare XPS 13 systems. And the battery life is 98% longer with the Snapdragon X Elite when playing back video. But really, that's where Snapdragon, a very mature platform, excels, gating down unnecessary cores and having a lot of hardware solutions that don't require a lot of CPU activity. I'm sure there's some better way of putting that, but it makes a lot of sense that an ARM-based part would have better battery life.
They did sort of tilt it as much as they could in favor of the ARM and Snapdragon by not pulling that video over a network. So they had no networking to power up and pull that and do all of that networking overhead for power usage. It was local video playback.
But it's local for both sides. Look, it says local playback time, 15.45 hours on Alder Lake i7, 29.6 hours on the ARM solution.
I guess my point is your mileage may vary. Well,
yeah, your mileage may vary. You may get more than double the battery life. It's pretty obvious. The only problem is going to be, are people going to be willing to accept having a limited subset of software that will run on an ARM Windows laptop? And last time the industry,
for the Power 10 laptop.
The industry tried this before. There were advantages. I don't know if there was this level of hype behind it. Microsoft was doing their own hardware, so this is going to be different because they're going to be
the original
brands.
Surface Pro.
Yeah.
That
So
horrifically nasty piece of garbage.
What you didn't have before, my favorite topic, sort of, you would accuse me, is you didn't have Apple out there with a similar architecture, just in many ways, taking the performance envelope and going home with it. They need something to compete in many ways. This is a step in that direction.
The
And
Surface
they're adopting
stuff,
many of the same things.
the Surface stuff was pretty blatantly just Apple envy. I mean, the fonts, the packaging, the marketing, the designs of the laptops. But I don't understand why Microsoft would want to follow Apple. Let's see, Apple at less than 10% of market share for laptops. Maybe it's more. I don't know. There was probably a time when they had more than 10% laptop market share. But whatever it is now, Intel dominates. And they have apparently some deals in place to keep it that way because we're not seeing a lot of AMD laptops relative to Intel offerings out there. So Apple is a pretty minor player.
Snapdragon see at the light of day without Apple doing this? I don't know.
I think that's been in the works for a long time, but Apple being very aggressive as usual by saying, nope, we're just going all ARM across the board. Even the Mac Pro is going to be ARM based, and people are shocked. They were shocked when Apple went Intel. They were shocked when Apple went PowerPC from Motorola 68000.
All true.
But they were shocked when Apple dropped the floppy disk and had only a USB port, no serial ports. So it's like the industry has spent many, many years being very shocked by Apple and then doing exactly what Apple did within like 2 to 5 years. Qualcomm goes where Apple won't. Ready's official Linux support for Snapdragon X Elite. So they are actually patching the kernel. I don't know very much about the inner workings of Linux. I just know that it has a lower overhead and tends to run better on lower powered hardware. And actually, if you remember back to Snapdragon's original, Qualcomm's original demos of this new platform, they were releasing benchmarks on custom Linux, not just Windows.
Yes.
So it makes a lot of sense. They've already been working on this internally. Why not share that with the Linux community and make it official?
They do definitely make it a point to what you just said that Apple won't go here, at least officially. There are ports of Linux to Apple's M series, but Apple doesn't in any way support.
It's not. It's okay. It's like early days of Hackintosh for that. There's a bunch of stuff that doesn't work.
That's true.
And who knows when it's going to work. If it works, it only works on M1 and M2, not M3, and certainly not the newly announced M4. So
yeah, how's the modder supposed to keep up when they're releasing brand new stuff before they even manage to get the first stuff to sale?
Apple's release cadence is just out of hand. They are able to rebrand existing technology so fast that the rest of the world just can't keep up. First, we had an M3, which was very similar to an M2 architecturally.
Except kind of worse in certain situations.
Yeah. And now we have the M4, which we don't know a lot of details about it, but I'm guessing it's just a revolutionary product that's going to turn the industry on their ear. Or just a rebranded M3.
For about a week until the M5 is announced.
It's like they've become like PCI SIG. There's going to be a new Apple SoC before anyone's even using the last one.
Right.
Like, wait, M2 was really good. I bought a Mac Studio and it's great. No, sorry, we're on M7 now.
Ooh, yeah.
Intel and AMD wouldn't know anything about taking the existing technology, slightly tweaking it, and re-releasing it. Not at all.
Never.
I don't remember anything I said.
Okay.
And we're going to move on to the next story, which is about VMware Workstation. Now, you know, Broadcom bought VMware, and it just seemed onerous. Like, what's going to happen? Well, here's what happened. They made VMware Workstation Pro and Fusion Pro free for home use. Free!
So essentially they did the exact opposite of what we expected Broadcom to have done historically. Because Broadcom kills. But this is interesting. It's almost like they're worried about their reputation after having bought off several companies and essentially destroyed their products to, hey, maybe if we just do this one totally not a dick move, people will like us again. So, I mean, hey, it's hopeful. And they're even further, you get to decide whether you should be using the free pro version or the paid for commercial version. The only difference is that there's a watermark saying that this is for personal use only. But as of right now, they're not doing audits or anything. So I guess they're hoping that people will try it out that have abandoned it for other things and maybe like this version. Because there are a lot of different VMs out there that you can choose from. You don't necessarily have to choose Broadcom, but hey, for free? Tempting.
Moving on to the next news story. AMD will reportedly stop supporting Windows 10, starting with its new Strix Point APUs. And you can all blame AI for that. This is Dave James at PC Gamer. Why? Is it because Windows is so heavily reliant?
Use this? Didn't Asus already take Strix?
Yeah, they have Strix.
You're wondering
like
about the naming?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be confusing. The Strix Point Strix motherboard. Can't wait.
Yes.
They're still calling out
squared?
that Win 10 is holding almost a 70% market share at this time.
Yeah.
Windows 10 market share went up last month by more than a percentage point.
Windows 11 is like the next Windows 8. They're going to have to do something because most people are still on like the equivalent of Windows 7. Windows 10, somebody said this recently. Windows 10 is the next Windows 7. People are going to use this for 10 years.
Yeah.
And they're going to refuse
until they start emailing or start mailing out free TPM chips that you can stick on a motherboard. That's what it'll take.
I recall on a podcast 3 years ago now, it was before the 11 official launch, but we were seeing, pre-release and developer copies of it. And I said at that time that I felt like Windows 11 was going to be Vista Part 2. And I still stand by that comment.
The only difference is that Vista was better because Vista didn't have AI.
Yeah.
And you could control your Windows Update experience with Vista. And you could run it on any hardware you wanted. It just wouldn't run well if you didn't have the latest.
That was the problem with Vista is Vista was sort of ahead of its time in its hardware demands. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was terribly unpopular, and there was a very poor adoption rate. It's why we saw 7 come out really very quickly after Vista. And 7 sort of cut back on some of the demanding parts of the Vista architect or the Vista design, and made it a little easier to run. But yeah, there was a terrible adoption rate of Vista, and we're seeing that again with 11.
Why can't people understand they need to embrace things like Copilot and Cortana and OneDrive and everything that makes Windows 11 just so adorable?
Microsoft has made Windows 11 so undesirable that
and onerous
that there's just a lot of fear and trepidation about adopting this new operating system. They're like, no, I'm keeping 10. 10 runs on my current laptop. I'm just going to keep 10 forever.
So in 2022, when I wrote that article of updating my system, when I went from 9900K to the 12900KS, when I built that system, I put 11 in it. When I redid that system, it has 10 in it now. Yep, it has 10. And I went through and I did all the things to make it look the way I'm used to, and went into the registry and edited the right click so I could actually access 7-zip without having to right click twice.
That's literally the first thing I do every Windows 11 install is fix the context menu.
Yeah, and there was just so much that I didn't like. And so, yeah, when I reinstalled and went to a 13th gen, I went back to Windows 10. And
are you missing the centered taskbar?
So despite the fact my system is on 10, I have built several systems with 11, and the first thing I do on all of them is move the taskbar to the left where it belongs.
Well, you can move the icons to be left justified, but you cannot move the taskbar to the left side of your screen. It has
Oh,
to
yes,
be at
you
the
can.
bottom. Well, I mean, you can modify things
Oh,
and run
yes,
utilities.
you're absolutely correct. Without third-party software, you
Yeah,
cannot move it from anywhere but the bottom.
which is really annoying. I mean, even Apple lets you move the taskbar wherever you want it. I used to have my taskbar
You
over
know
on
what
the
else
right,
they took
to
away?
the left, wherever it felt right. What?
Auto hide.
That's gone too?
You can
How are they
mod it
supposed
in, but
how can
by default,
how can they serve you AI related ads down by the clock if you're hiding the task? I guess it could force it to come back
exactly.
up.
And
Don't
that's
worry,
a
the
good
next patch
way
will
to
re-enable that.
You have
it's
a
a good way
notification.
to cause warranty claims on OLEDs in 2 years.
Yeah. It's collusion. It's conspiracy. All right, let's move on from news to security or in security corner. And what better way to kick this off than to talk about a software bug that could kill you? So,
Uh-huh.
people using diabetes care apps and those connected health devices, there's a possibility that it just doesn't work properly somehow. It's hard to believe, but it might not always work.
Well, this was a specifically horrible patch. It wasn't malicious. It was literally the people from Tandem Diabetes Care that make these insulin pumps that are implanted so you can fire them off from your smartphone. And so the latest update that they did, which was version 2.7, if anyone here is using it, stop using it now, it would crash. And every time it crashed, it had to restart, but it also had to restart the pump, which would drain the battery. And eventually it would drain the battery completely, so that even though the app's saying, oh, yeah, no, we delivered your insulin on time, the pump itself is out of juice and is not able to deliver everything. So over 200 users ended up hospitalized because of this. And it's just this, as much as I complain about the Internet of Things and just how stupid some of the problems are with it, this is my true fear. We get smart devices, which are literal medical devices that are not tested properly, put out, and you literally have people dying. And that's not even without a bad actor trying to hack into it, because I'm sure we'll find out someday that this is also vulnerable. Yeah, this is just horrible.
After that depressing intro, let's move to a story about a router. There's a proof of concept exploit that's been released, POC exploit released for RCE 0 day. I don't understand how these terms.
So
There's no patch. So,
Okay.
No, the
Okay.
SSD security closure team has been bugging D-Link for a while now, saying, "Hey, there's a serious problem here. Oh, hey, bud, there's a problem here. You got to deal with this, eh? It's not good, because it apparently is a very popular router in Canada. It's sold everywhere, but in Canada, for whatever reason, I'm going to find out in the next couple of weeks that this is actually tied to the whole hack of the British Columbian government. I'm pretty much positive about it. It uses the home network administration protocol. So if you're super lazy and you like remote access to your home router and you set it up on this port, it does give you a great way to access your system from when you're away and deal with it, as opposed to, just waiting until you're home or setting up a proper SSH shell or something like that.
Now,
But anyway,
Jeremy, you have set a specific admin password on this. Okay, it's not the defaults. You've been a good user,
No,
a great operator.
you've done everything.
You've changed your defaults. You've made it strong. Please continue.
Yeah.
So that's assuming
You've done everything.
You've done everything
Yeah,
right.
if you haven't, well, it's the same whether you did or not. Whether you actually did proper care of your router or not, a specially crafted login request to that management interface that you just throw in will immediately create a brand new admin account. Poof, done. It'll even hand you over a cookie, a public key, and set up a challenge for you. And the best part I'm saving for last. You'd assume that, hey, if this is some sort of home or network administration port, it would be an obscure port. It wouldn't be something that was used for everything, like port 80. So a weird request over port 80, your internet-facing port, boom, they now have full admin access to your router. It's obscene.
And then there's an internal vulnerability that allows them to essentially take it over and then upload an exploit that allows them to run arbitrary code. So it's a remote code execution. They gain access through this home network at admin port. So now they have access. And then internally, once they're able to log in and have be able to run its essentially internal functions, there's an exploit for those internal functions that allow them to then load arbitrary code onto your little Linux box. And from there, they can begin to traverse your network or turn it into whatever they want. Convenient.
And I didn't have the time to look into it, but I'm fairly sure you can't actually change the address that protocol comes in on. You can't even be lazy.
Probably not.
8080.
But shedding off remote access is probably the first step if you own one of these series routers.
You can disable it. It's still running. You disable the remote
Did not know that.
And it still will answer. Because, yes, it sort of shuts down, but it's still there with a wake on LAN, essentially. So, no, if you've got a D-Link DRX 4860, unplug it and either wait for a patch or just take it out back with a sledgehammer and make yourself feel better.
So this is the AX 4800 and the 4860. So essentially the 4800 series, I believe. If you have one of those, very popular, unfortunately.
Well, apparently if you live in Canada, you already have one, and it may be too late.
Thankfully, I don't.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Speaking of too late, Google has fixed their 5th Chrome zero-day exploited in attacks this year. Not just proof of concept, actually exploited in real-life attacks.
In the wild.
But, Chrome is really popular, so I guess it would have been exploited more than, say, Internet Explorer 7.
Edge? No, wait, that's Chrome, isn't it?
Okay.
That's not fair.
It's true, though.
So this is a use after free, unfortunately, a class of exploits that an application allocates memory, doesn't properly check the bounds condition, attempts to free that memory, but it's still in its address space, and you're kind of allowed to execute code into it with a finely crafted way of doing so. Unfortunately, this is a really obscure way of hacking this particular exploit in Chrome. No, it's not. It's perfectly easy. It's with an image. So a correctly crafted, it's an image. It's the image processing engine that has this use after free issue with the properly crafted input to be able to take advantage of kind of leaving your code in the correct space of the image that's being sent, and then the program counter will execute it at some point. So I don't know if Google has a patch for this one yet or not, but if yes, they do. So make sure you are updated to the very, very latest Google if you haven't already. They should be warning you to upgrade your browser as it is, but just in case, just make sure. I think it's 124 with a lot of minor version numbers for Mac and Windows, so it ends in 201 is the correct version.
Or just wait till tomorrow and there'll be a new one.
Yeah, probably. I note that the funny thing was it's 5. It's 5, so we've kind of averaged kind of one a month here. So
finally, in Security Corner, illuminated road signs can be good for your eyes and bad for AIs.
Nice.
Nicely done, Jeremy.
So we all know that there is no such thing as a white LED. What it is that it's flashing a rainbow of colors so fast that our eyes are just, blurring it into a white because our eyes lie to us. Well, a couple of researchers proved that you can actually take advantage of that so that the rolling shutter on a CMOS camera, which is what almost all of the self-driving cars use, isn't really able to recognize a sign because the background color changes so much. So the stop sign, it's been trained and, hey, they should be a solid color. And so they're presented with something that is, red at the top, then it's yellow, then it's blue, then there's a bit of red, and then because it's rolling, right? So it's back in the old BBS days, waiting for the picture to come in. And so the thing just says, yeah, that's obviously not a street sign, tosses it out, and blows straight through. Not a care in the world. This would also work for just about any other sign, because part of that training data is signs don't constantly change color. That's not something they do. And for us, we don't see the change in color. There's no hint that anything is going to be different. But if you got the self-driving car going, and this is for just about all of the major ones, it's not going to be able to see it, period. But, Ghost Stripe is a great name for it, because, hey, it's striped, but we can't see it. And that'll just do just about anything that's going on. And because the reason I say it's a theme week is that Zoox-powered Toyota Highlanders have been taking out motorcycles. Apparently, if it detects a motorcycle behind it, it just immediately brake checks, and you end up with a motorcyclist on top of your SUV. And then Waymo driverless cars, which there aren't that many of them, but 22 times, have just either drifted into oncoming traffic, decided that a parked car wasn't there, or in a couple of times pulled a Mr. Magoo and took a detour through a construction site.
Jeremy, that has only amounted to injuries about 17 of the 22 times. Okay?
So it's true, but
just get out in front of that.
Yeah.
It's early
And that was
days.
after it decided to crash into towed vehicles, because they had a huge recall for that, because if it detected a vehicle being towed by a tow truck that was rear-facing as opposed to forward-facing, oh, well, obviously it's moving quick, and bam, smash into them. So yeah, trust those self-driving cars. They're just 2 thumbs up.
And now it's time for gaming quick hits. And the first story, next Battlefield game will have connected, it says with quotation marks, multiplayer and single-player offerings made by series' biggest team yet. And this is from Rock, Paper, Shotgun.
Do you believe them that, after firing huge amounts of people, getting completely roasted by the community, most people just more or less ignoring the last game, except when it was on sale for here's everything for $8. All right, fine, I'll buy it and try it. Oh, look, I played it 3 times and put it away. So they're talking about, continuing this whole ridiculous online game service, as opposed to, just giving us a browser and being able to jump in and out of games as we wanted to. But they will put a single player campaign back in. So that's nice. I mean, it's been annoying that there hasn't been one for a little while. Those used to be kind of fun. But yeah, the whole... I don't know. It's hard to trust them, because it's just been really bad the last couple of times. Not horrific, but really bad. So we'll see. There are already the defenders out there that, they've got a huge crew working on them already. It's going to be amazing. You can even play it now.
But they've listened to the community, have learned valuable lessons, and are driving to the future. That obviously means always connected single-player mode, right? That's what the community wants. They want Windows 11. Oh, no, we're being negative again. People are going to be upset.
Stop.
True.
Don't.
All right, Homeworld 3. I think we mentioned that this was coming before, and here it is.
Came
21 years later.
Just in time.
And you thought Duke Nukem took a long time.
Is this as disappointing as the Duke Nukem sequel when it finally came?
In that I haven't picked it up
Okay.
yet, because they've changed the interface, but they put out that demo, Christmas time-ish, and people screamed and yelled, hey, your controller scheme is ridiculous, it makes no sense, what the hell were you thinking? And so they decided to stick with it, but modify it a bit. So apparently it's just gone to a steep learning curve, but once you learn how it works, it does make sense and becomes as natural as the first two did, assuming you're old enough to have played them. Although 9 years ago, the remasters came out, so you might have played it then. Overall, I mean, the hardware requirements aren't bad. Even at 4K, you're not needing absolute top hardware to play it. At 1080p, you can crank everything up to max, including ray tracing on both AMD and NVIDIA, and happily enjoy, frame rates well north of 60. Overall, the reviews have been, well, yeah, it's Homeworld. We were kind of hoping they'd add more to it, but it's definitely Homeworld. So if that's what you're looking for, give it a shot. Otherwise, I think I'm waiting until this one goes on sale. And I finished my replay of Homeworld 1 and 2, which I need to get back to.
You still have a 6800 XT, right, Jeremy? I think that's the minimum for 4K and AMD.
Yes.
And he's future-proof.
And at 1440, I can actually apparently enable ray tracing and probably get close to 100 frames a second.
And it's all thanks to that 16 gigabyte frame buffer.
That's true.
That's a positive statement. That's a positive statement.
They were so ahead of their time. They gave you 16 gigs in the 6800 XT and the 6950 XT. It was unprecedented. And that was not too long after Vega. No, what was it? What was it called? Radeon 7? Back. Radeon 7 came out with 16. 16. Mm-hmm. And it was unbelievable. Who could even use this much? And then...
Yes, because the Vega 64 was not properly named.
No. Well, it had 64 CUs. That's why it was called 64. There was a Vega 56 and 56 CUs.
Yeah.
And HBM was still a thing.
For AMD.
I mean, it still is a thing.
It still is a thing.
It's a big thing. It's like SK Hynix is sold out through 2025, I think, at this point.
Yeah, it's all server stuff. I don't know if we'll ever see HBM again on consumer gaming cards.
But you know what you can use HBM for? Serving ads really, really quickly to EA customers.
Yeah. Speaking of EA.
Hey, unfortunately, we have to be kind of negative again because EA is doing EA things. They're talking about putting ads into games. But don't worry, says this article at Rock, Paper, Shotgun. They're quoting EA. It'll be very thoughtful. Quote, as we start to harness the power of community, how do we think about advertising as a growth driver? End quote. This just sounds like something from a shareholder meeting. But how can we think of it as like a growth driver? I don't know. You take money from Burger King and you put the Junior Whopper on the screen, and then the character has some funny dialogue where he interacts with the Burger King product, right?
Oh, yeah.
No.
It's
a great idea.
It's a growth driver. They're taking advertising from Viagra.
You know what? They could write some funny dialogue about the character being Viagra before their encounter with something or someone.
What happened was they happened to notice, literally, this is almost a paraphrased quote out of the article. There's too many people spending billions of hours enjoying themselves in these video games. Too many people. We can't let that slide without advertising. We're afraid that maybe you're having too much fun, too many hours, no advertising. We're going to find a way to help you out there. We're going to slide some advertising into that space, and we're going to profit from that, and you're going to put up with it. And everything's going to be great, and we're going to be happy with that, and so are you.
Conversely, if you don't want to put up with it, we have the gold tier version of the game you're about to buy, which has minimal advertising.
Yeah, just
and platinum tier, which you need to renew every year, which will block all advertising except for one specific set. And that is what they're going to do.
The platinum tier will have the tasteful implementation, and the basic tier will just be, there's going to be ads all around the screen, and you have like a letterbox of the game with the ads.
Yes.
I figured they were just going to bring back the area load screen and just throw a full 30-second commercial into the load screen.
Oh, they'll do that.
Pepsi. It's so cool and refreshing, especially on a hot day like this. They use the power of AI to interact with you. Like, hey, how you feeling?
And if you're playing a single player game that you can pause, well, hey.
Are you thirsty? While you're waiting, why don't you go to the kitchen and get yourself an ice cold Pepsi?
Are you standing up to get food like a loser? Why not go to skip the dishes and get them to deliver it through your window?
Or it looks at you with the built-in camera. It's like, oh, I see you're not wearing pants. Have you looked into these easy-to-wear shorts?
I was just thinking, if you find that you have to leave your game too often to go to the bathroom, try the new Razer gaming catheter.
We should go back and look at
as our mask.
Go back and look at the Max Headroom show. That was ads that made your head explode. Mm-hmm. Exactly. They were afraid that corporate culture would begin to interject ads in everything. What a bunch of futuristic dummies. Just
watch Idiocracy and look at what TV looks like in the future. That's the future of games.
The future?
It's not quite there yet.
Idiocracy is still in the future?
It's like 5 years away. Still.
It's always about 5 years away.
Picks of the week. Jeremy, please get us started.
Oh, all right. I suppose I will. It's because Josh isn't here. Someone has to pick an SSD. Now, these are Canadian prices, and this is because this is the May 2-4 weekend, except it's happening a week early, regardless. Newegg, our favorite place not to shop, is offering a PCIe 4.0 Western Digital Black 4 terabyte at not the low price of $439, but when you apply the fancy little code that they give you, you get an extra $35 off for $404. So Canadian 10 cents a gigabyte. That right now is amazing because if you've noticed, SSD prices are creeping up. If that's a little rich for you, there is a 2 gigabyte model that's almost as good a deal. But hey, if you are even slightly in need of fast storage at this point, you should probably buy it because flash prices are going up.
Or just move to America where we have it for $319 with no promo code.
It's not too bad.
I don't think it quite translates.
New tariffs are coming now.
Why does it say the regular price is $700?
I don't know. Maybe it was when it first launched.
It probably was when it was introduced.
4 terabyte Gen 4? That's not cheap. Who else is selling this? Other companies? Beach Audio.
Same.
Yeah. Brett, your pick this week.
I went with something very simple and not very expensive. For those people who like to occasionally break away from the two-dimensional objects whizzing around their screens and maybe do something crazy and get outside, maybe even go camping. Bring some of that technology with you. This is going to give you an excuse for that. And if you don't own the part that goes with this, nope, that's what I was going to say.
Oh,
that's what I was going to say. Elevate yourself above the sheet hung from a clothesline. Okay. Get something a little bit better for not a lot of money. For $30, 100-inch RCA indoor outdoor. So use it in either place. 100-inch diagonal portable projector screen from Woot. It's not a lot of cash. And now you have an excuse to not only bring your projector, but maybe for $29 and you've got this, screen now. Go get a projector.
Buy one. Yeah, go spend $1,000 or more on a high brightness 4K projector.
Yeah.
Because now you've got this flimsy $30 screen that will absolutely turn into a sail and blow away with the first mild breeze.
It'll be fine.
These legs basically leave
Sebastian. Why don't you just quit bitching about everything and go make your own screen?
Make your own screen. Well, this is.
Don't forget the bricks. Bring a couple of bricks.
I have tried outdoor projection. Believe it or not. Something of a projector enthusiast. I don't have one right now.
Maven. A projector
I sold my projector. I had an Epson. Was it an Epson? Yeah, it was an Epson. But yeah, I like this idea
Neighbor
a lot.
across the alley's got an LG. He hangs a blanket out,
Okay.
turps it down, and it works.
It does, but elevate your game. Get a rear projector. You get a little bit more light back.
A rear projector? Hold on.
I
What?
said a real projector.
Oh, real. Sorry. Real
projector. You get a little bit more of that light back at you. So
you get a lot more than that. You'll get the whole screen flying at you. I guess if you backed it up, if you're lucky enough to go camping with people who have, like an actual trailer, whatever those things are called, campers, I guess, or fifth wheel.
Yeah.
Like back it up against the surface of it, put it under the awning, put some sandbags down on the feet, hope for the best.
It's $30.
I know.
Buy a new one.
All right. I do nothing but make negative comments, and it's bringing everybody down. Kent, do you have a pick this week?
I do. And it's not a gaming catheter, although Amir in the Discord chat has determined that gaming catheters are actually a real thing.
Oh, good.
Yes, they come in different colors.
Yeah. Oh my
God. Are they
God.
RGB?
Not yet.
Oh, that was my suggestion. But no. So if you're a gamer, but you're not at the point where you feel like you need a gaming catheter, but you do need a better monitor, there's a sale going on right now. It's not an OLED, but it's the very next best thing. It is a mini LED, 4K, 32 inch, 240 hertz, Samsung Odyssey Neo G8. It has over 2,000 individual lighting zones, if I recall, capable of HDR 2000, so it will sear your retinas if you need it to.
That explains the hefty bezel.
It is curved. It has a pretty extreme curve at 1000R. I kind of like curved monitors, so that's not a bad thing. This monitor, when it came out, was around $1,400. Right now at Newegg, you can order this monitor for $899.99. And on top of that, there is a $100 off coupon. So that's a pretty good price for a very, very, very good gaming monitor. And that's all I got.
Damn.
Oh, okay. After promo, that's like half off the original price. Well, almost. But yeah, and plus it may be an extreme curve, or not extreme, but an aggressive curve. But it's VA. It's
well for 32 inches. It's.
I think
that's pretty aggressive.
If you've had, at one point, I had a Philips 32-inch vertical alignment monitor, 2560 by 1440. Very, very good contrast ratio. I loved it. But off-axis was terrible. And even looking at it head-on, because it was 32 inches and I was only a couple feet away from it, you could see the color shift from to the sides of the screen. So if it had been curved, that would have brought everything back, and you wouldn't have had that drop in color saturation and fidelity to the left and right edge of the screen. So that's what you want. You want curve.
And the other benefit is, there are still a lot of people out there who, despite the obvious superiority of OLED, they're worried about burn-in. You don't have to with this panel.
Hey, go back in time. You
mispronounced plasma.
Go back in time to it's 1903. You're in a major city like Chicago, and all the cabs are driving around with their 2 or 3 giant Edison batteries in the back. And the cabbie, they can switch out the Edison batteries frequently at the station, and they're driving around. And then there's this talk about these internal combustion cars. Those things are dangerous. Those are death traps. They carry highly flammable fuel around with them in a big tank. It's just asking for trouble. And then what happened?
Combustion's right in the name.
It seems that it caught on anyway. There was this whole network of filling stations that were put in, and it became very convenient and fast to get around long distances by just refilling and not having to switch out battery packs. But nobody remembers this part of history EVs are very new, emerging technology from 1903.
No.
That's all I'm going to say.
And the thing that
combustion
held
engines are a
EVs
flash in the
back
pan.
then is the thing that holds EVs back still.
Yes.
It's the batteries.
Yes.
The battery technology has advanced in 120 years, but not as much as you'd like it to.
It still takes a lot of
Much like the
space.
CEOs.
They've regressed. They're de-evolving.
Yeah, I would say that
Oh.
in general, if you look at the people who run businesses now, it seems like there's a
I
little
meant
bit more of a
specifically car
committee
companies.
structure. Oh, okay.
I was
well,
keeping
again,
this in the single lane and just car companies. They've
some
always been
OLEDs
a bit,
are treated not to have as much glare. PlanetVampire.com. It depends on how they're treated. It depends on the coating. Because OLED, it can be anything you want it to be, really. You can flex it around stuff, and you can put different top layers on it. It's just that for the OLEDs that you're probably used to having seen at electronic stores, if it's made by LG, as all the OLEDs have been until Samsung started large-scale production of large OLED panels, they were kind of a purple color, and they're rather shiny. But Kent, your OLED experience with your monitor it has an anti-glare coating on it, right?
It has it's what they call it a semi-gloss with an anti-glare treatment.
Okay.
It is not as bad as like just a full glossy pane of glass. But I do have to pay attention to lighting behind me, but it's not as bad as I was concerned it might be from, some comments I had seen. I mean, the QD OLEDs are all this semi-gloss panel. The LG W OLEDs, the new generation, are all a matte panel. So you can get, matte, semi-gloss. I had actually heard, and it might have been Gigabyte, was looking at one of the new 4K OLED displays. I do not remember if it was a Samsung Quantum Dot or if it was a LG W OLED, but they were looking at making the panel from Gorilla Glass, which does have a very good anti-glare coating on it as well. So it could be glossy with an anti-reflective coating.
I have a pick this week.
Baby wipes.
I do. Baby wipes, yes. And I'm going to talk about this. I miss the days when I had these Amazon Elements unscented baby wipes around because I use them to clean all sorts of things. They're like flexible magic erasers. And I don't know how good
But they're
that
not
was.
reusable.
I don't.
You know that.
No, I don't know how good that was on my son's skin, but it was great for deep cleaning stuff that I just couldn't get clean any other way. And I have since bought another case of them on Amazon for $21.14 because nothing cleans better. Like if I want to detail a car, there's like some grimy spot or, bug or tree sap or whatever. Just take one of these out, go back and forth across it a few times. It's gone. It makes things look brand new again. You can clean shoes, clean yourself, forget about bathing with the Amazon Element baby wipes. No, not right.
You heard it here. Heard it here. You sure did.
These are not flushable. Use them instead of a disposable, instead of a paper towel and a spray cleaner, just grab the Amazon wipe and it's an all-in-one solution to clean everything in your life.
But you can literally buy a cubic meter of magic erasers for about the same price.
I don't know if that's true.
They're not disposable. You got to reuse that.
Magic erasers
right.
might be too practical for me.
Yeah.
PC perspective. We're the home of the RGB catheter and not bathing.
Right. We don't have to keep that part in, but yeah, thanks for the call back. I didn't say I didn't bathe.
Exactly.
I just said I did it in an alternative way. Yep. And I think that's going to do it for another episode of the PC Perspective podcast. I want to thank everyone for watching and listening. because without you, life just wouldn't be as
We'd
interesting.
be doing this alone, and it would be weird.
It
Individually.
would be. It would get really strange.
We're gonna
One by
thank
one, we'd all
11
quit, and then
all
it would
11
just
of
be.
you.
It would just be Jeremy, just the way it's all started, typing up news stories while he was supposed to be working.
In a vacuum.
Yeah.
I'll have to find Lee again.